Assalamu alaikum dear students, and welcome to the 61st session of the KIPS Distance Learning Program Current Affairs Newspaper Roundup session. I'm your host Shahrukh Haider, and today we're going to see how, despite the fact that the weather has gotten pretty cold, the relations between Pakistan and India are only heating up. So this is in context of India's bellicose attitude towards Pakistan, towards this region, and its ambitions to become a regional hegemon at all costs, using all available means, whether they are peaceful, whether they are aggressive, whether they are warlike. So a recent revelation has been made. First of all, it was made by the Pakistan's Foreign Ministry in a dossier which gave ample evidence, irrefutable evidence, that India was involved in creating terrorist activities, terror attacks all through Pakistan and the greater region as well, and India was a state sponsor of terror. And the narrative that the world has previously believed that Pakistan was a state sponsor of terror was a false narrative, and in fact India was the perpetrator of all terrorist activities and militant movement and mobility that was happening in Pakistan and the broader region, including in Afghanistan. So recently, a Brussels-based NGO by the name of Disinfolab has uncovered a 15-year-old operation of misinformation and fake news and information warfare involving hundreds in fact, of fake media outlets to discredit Pakistan in the eyes of the European Union, North American countries, and the United Nations, and it has been very potent in able to do that. And the Disinfolab reported that this is the largest misinformation network that they have ever encountered in their history. So we know that India has been attempting to undermine Pakistan on all affairs ever since its 2004 Cold Start doctrine, which is a military doctrine, a security doctrine meant to internally destabilize Pakistan and eventually lead to breakup of Pakistan. So they have done that in a number of ways. Some of the important pillars of that military doctrine are to economically strangulate Pakistan by choking access to foreign capital, by discouraging foreign direct investors from investing in Pakistan, by creating security dilemma and painting Pakistan as a state sponsor of terror, as a society that is extremely unsafe and violent for anyone from the outside world to visit. Secondly, they have tried to destabilize Pakistan's western border with Afghanistan. We have seen that in a number of ways, by supporting the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the Baloch separatists, and generally creating discord on Pakistan's western border so that Pakistan's army could be pulled to the western border and its eastern border would become even more insecure, and then the army would push for more funds from the Pakistani budget, and automatically Pakistan's budgetary allocations would go out of balance. They're already out of balance, but still would go further out of balance, and Pakistan's space for development would be completely eaten up by the need for security. And that is exactly what has been happening to us ever since 1947, especially in the early years, which is why our parliamentary institutions never had the space or the resources to build themselves up. Thirdly, they have sought to create internal security threats within Pakistan, such as the supporting Balochistan Liberation Army, the Kalbushan Jadab network, the Chabahar Port network, all efforts to undermine Pakistan's internal stability, security, and derail the CPEC project. And all of these efforts under the Bharatiya Janata Party, the RSS-inspired Hindutva Akhund Bharat ideology, has only been intensified, the efforts to destabilize Pakistan, that is. And we have seen this even though Pakistan has attempted, Prime Minister Imran Khan has attempted in recent years to bridge the gaps between India and Pakistan, to offer an olive branch, but all of our efforts have been thwarted. They have been completely rejected, and it has become quite clear to the Pakistan security establishment and the civil administration that this is not the time for seeking peace, resolution, and dialogue with India, because they are in no mood. This is the time for action to thwart Indian efforts to damage Pakistan internally and externally. So in that respect, I think on the diplomatic front, Pakistan has been bagging a certain number of trophies. First of all, the Kartarpur corridor was a major win of Pakistan's diplomatic and peaceful efforts as compared to India's bellicose attitude towards Pakistan. Secondly, Pakistan is tacitly, not directly, supporting the re-emergence of the Khalistan movement in Indian Punjab, and it is gaining traction. In the 90s, Pakistan also supported them because India was constantly interfering in Pakistan's internal dynamics, creating instability. So Pakistan had to reply in kind. So all of these efforts that India has undertaken to destabilize Pakistan, what has Pakistan done in return? Well, at least until 2014, before the APS Peshawar attack, Pakistan had a very dispersed policy to deal with India's aggression and India's nefarious activities towards Pakistan, and there weren't really coordinated state level policy structure to deal with India. But after the APS attack, after the Peshawar APS attack on this day, 6 years ago, 2014, 16th November, Pakistan created its comprehensive anti-militancy, anti-radicalism, and anti-Indian interference plan by the name of National Action Plan. It was in the aftermath of the APS attack, and it was a broad-ranging national security doctrine meant to revolutionize and change Pakistan's state and society. There were 20 agenda points or items on the National Action Plan's list, and they ranged from all sorts of institutional frameworks, social realities in Pakistan, from reforming the madrasas to curbing misinformation against Pakistan by India, and a lot of other things were included. But if we look at the National Actions Plan in countering India's nefarious designs against Pakistan, so there were a number of things to be considered. Firstly, the National Action Plan envisioned completely curbing terror financing and money laundering in Pakistan. And that was further strengthened in 2018, 19 and 20 by the FATF pressure, the grey listing, and the subsequent policy and legislative work that the National Assembly did to fulfill FATF requirements and further strengthen the fiscal structure of Pakistan to make it more transparent and accountable. Because in Pakistan, a lot of terrorist activities and militant mobility that happens in our state and society is financed to a significant degree by external actors such as India and RAW. And by curbing terror financing, we can at least limit the amount of funding that anti-state elements in Pakistan get from India. Secondly, the National Action Plan envisioned FATA reforms, the integration of FATA into the broader constitution of Pakistan, and that was achieved by the 25th and 26th Amendment. The groundwork has been laid, the legislative work has been laid, the actual implementation and administrative setup still needs to be done. So Pakistan needs to speed up the process of integration of FATA into Pakistan completely and wholly on all institutional levels, and ensure the safety and security and the establishment of rule of law in all 7 of FATA districts. Thirdly, the National Action Plan sought and empowered the Balochistan government to pursue political reconciliation with the Balochistan dissidents and anti-state elements such as the Balochistan Liberation Army. Now, the Balochistan Liberation Army has been a major proxy that has been used by RAW and India to create instability in Balochistan, especially to derail the CPEC project, which India has not accepted from day one. So, therefore, Balochistan government's efforts to reconcile with these Baloch separatists was an effort to cut India's legs and not allow India to reach out to them, because they would be integrated into the political mainstream. And to some extent, the Balochistan government, along with the help from the armed forces of Pakistan, was able to achieve this objective, because hundreds of Balochistan liberation militants gave up their arms and joined government ranks and army ranks and police ranks and became mainstreamed. And finally, Pakistan has unveiled, especially I think since 2018, under the umbrella of the National Action Plan, a broad and comprehensive counter-media strategy to basically thwart Indian efforts to paint Pakistan as a safe haven for terrorists, as an unstable, insecure, and extremely dangerous place for foreigners. And this media strategy has only been strengthened and expanded in recent years, because this is for the first time, I believe, in 2020 that Pakistan has been able to reveal to the world Indian nefarious designs and misinformation and information warfare against Pakistan, first in the Dozier and now in the Disinfo labs. So let's hope that Pakistan keeps on this trajectory to reveal the real face of India to the world, the neo-fascist attitude that India has in this region and what its objectives are. And this has been largely becoming serious to the world as well, and the world is recognizing Pakistan's narrative on this and crediting it more than it used to do. So some progress there, which is good. Hope that there will be more progress. Thank you very much for your time.